Ready?
Hello and welcome back to Speak. This is part two of our Suicide Awareness Month bonanza. Oh, that's a terrible word. Never mind. Damn it. Fucking why don't we edit this stuff? I'm nervous. Suicide bonanza. So, welcome back, Damien and Crystal. I suppose shout out to everyone who either watched on YouTube or listened on Spotify over the last week. We've had some amazing feedback from the last episode, which is fantastic because it was a nerve-wracking one to make, and it was I'm sure there was difficulty for the two of you in all that you shared. So again, thank you for that. And yeah, I'm fucking so proud of you, and it's class. So brilliant.
Thanks, mate. Well, you made it easy, right? 100%. So it was a pleasure.
Facilitating to my vibe.
by asking one question and just letting it flow.
it just went.
That's it, man. Just giving you the space to do your thing.
Well, I mean, that's why we started Speak, right? Because that's what it's about. Say it out loud, take the space.
100%. So, at the end of the last episode, there was so much that we hadn't said and that we were saying, oh my God, we could talk and talk for hours. So hence the part two. And I guess what I would like to maybe start with is there anything from the discussion points last week that you feel you didn't cover or that you wish you had spoke more to? I know I've spoken to people during the week who probably have questions around kind of coping mechanisms and things like that. But yeah, so maybe I might throw to you, Crystal, first. Is there something that you wanted to drill into from last week?
I think the drilling into not necessarily, there's a couple of things definitely I felt like I didn't say that I wanted to. And one of them, I really want to say overtly, the best thing I ever did was make the decision not to. And I am glad every single day. And the road back, and I know we'll cover that, is proper tricky and it's difficult. But I am so glad that I didn't. And I just want to say that really out loud, especially if anyone is in that space right now and thinking, it doesn't get better, mate. And that's like completely gender neutral, mate. It does get better, and you can do this. And yeah, and then the other thing I guess is we were talking to audience wise, we sort of aimed some of our stuff at the people witnessing or supporting. And I really felt like I wanted to say overtly, remember, it's not your job to be an expert. Like, it can feel terrifying starting conversations, asking questions, but actually one of the most important thing you can ever do as a non-expert is connect somebody to an expert to help. So give them the Samaritan's number, point them to, if it's in work, an EAP system, whatever. It's not your job to be an expert. It's not your job. So just remember, it feels really heavy. You can just connect people with proper care. And that's okay. And that's actually the most important thing you can do. So they're a couple of things that were on my mind.
Yeah. And I suppose on that point about people being fearful about what to say or when to say it or that kind of thing. And it actually was brought up to me of like, oh, are you worried about like saying something wrong? Which, yes. Are you worried about like triggering people and things like this? And it's almost like you kind of go, well, that fear is what stops us from talking about these things, which then perpetuates the stigma. And I was listening to a Blind Boy Book Club podcast during the week, and he was speaking with a trauma expert, and he had brought this up about like, oh, should I as a layperson be talking about it? And she was like, peer connection is so vitally important. And it's not about medicalizing everything. You don't have to be a professional to talk about this stuff. Like, what's the worst that could happen is, yeah, you might put your foot in it, but it's like lean into the awkward.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the only way you're going to disarm it. That's it. And I think the amount of people that saw me, and I think I mentioned like at the top of my scale, my body shuts down completely and I physically can't eat. And that can be for however long that I'm in crisis for. And lots of my friends, one in particular, used to take me to a supermarket and be like, just anything, just Brom, my nickname's Brommers, anything, just whatever it is, just like pick a thing, a chip, like anything. And I would buy it and I would feel like I could. And then I would sit and it would just, I couldn't. And all of the help was there, but yet nobody could say, Crystal, are you thinking about suicide?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer would have been, well, I can't live like this. Like, I can't do this every day. And it would have been a different conversation. So I think, yeah, I've gone off on the tangent there. I can't even remember your original question, but yes, I think
it's all relevant. It's all relevant.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So the lay, yes. So the peer connection, yes. Sorry, the peer connection part of going in, and I used to sit in an office full of engineers, and they now I know it's called grounding. Every single day they gave me grounding, which was like just come at 9 o'clock for tea. What they actually meant was just at 9 o'clock be here, and then we'll get you from 9 till 11, and then you just have to go home from 9 till 2, and it's just these little markers. So that peer-to-peer, powerful, right? Absolutely powerful. So yeah, absolutely say it, ask the question, get, as you said, get real with the awkward, lean in.
Yeah, absolutely. Damien, I know you had spoken a lot about the kind of, I suppose, the kind of tools that you had used to kind of, I suppose, bring yourself back to wellness and all that kind of thing. So that's probably something I wanted to, I suppose, you to speak a bit more on, to give a bit more, I suppose, context around it, or what, because people always go, oh, you have to try things or do bits and pieces. Like, so what are the bits and pieces? What are the things?
Actual things, yeah.
What are the actuals? With obviously a caveat that it's a very personal thing and it's trial and error for everyone, but still it's kind of an idea of a starting point. Also, anything that you didn't get in last week that you want to get, all of the questions.
Everything. Like I suppose even just to start, the feedback from last week was quite good from family. Like I got quite a good bit of feedback from family. Had a couple of messages even going between some family members and Crystal, and just kind of they were kind of delving a little bit more into some of the stuff that she spoke about. So like even just some of the stuff that they're like, oh, I didn't actually realize that was a thing that I did, and it's a thing. So, oh, okay, that makes sense now. That little bit of connection there, like for me, that was one of the big takeaways from it. I think they like kind of to say, to go with what Crystal just said there about, being so glad that you didn't do it. For me, like over the last couple of years, things have changed, the family dynamics changed. We now have a 3 and a bit year old. And she for me, most of the time there, she's the thing that if I maybe go to a bad place, like she's the thing there all the time that I'm just like, that's the difference. And that's why I didn't do it. And that's why I'm going to go and I'm going to just figure this out for what it is right now. And, I'll take the next step there and see what this one leads to. I think the trial and error thing is, it can be anything from, if you are kind of feeling in that low mood, it can just be taking stock. It can be going and saying, right, well, this is what I think of this situation right now. Maybe I need to go and have this conversation with this person. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Sometimes you'll come out of conversations that are kind of elated that you've gone into it and you've asked the question of somebody and you've managed to figure out a situation. It's great. Sometimes it doesn't work out and you come back and you go, oh shit, kind of tail between the legs thing. But there's still that little bit of learning in there that you're going to take to the next situation that you go into. It's almost like, I don't know, I suppose just to try and visualize it on this kind of long road. And there's so many little tiny avenues that you can go down and you can try. Some stuff doesn't work, but again, it's trying to remain conscious all the time, when you are going down this kind of road to, I suppose, to better wellness, that it is trying these little things. The speaking about it, for me, again, last week going into it, I was quite nervous. I was a bit like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I've become more comfortable with speaking about it. Speaking to people about it, if I do see somebody who I maybe think isn't in a good place, that's still quite difficult. It's a really difficult thing to try and get through your head is I have to go and ask this person this really, really personal question. But again, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. There's times that you can't ask it, and people are like, no, honestly, I'm absolutely fine, but thanks for asking. You will get that little bit of gratitude back, and you go, I'm glad I did that. I have had one or two instances before where I have asked the question. It's been really hard. Well, like I have asked two people, like, are you feeling suicidal? Two separate people. It's a really, really hard question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get easier. The second time I've had to do it, like, it was no easier than the first.
Yeah.
But just to be able to get that bit of a connection with someone there, and you can just see something change whenever you ask that question. You can see the impact that question has. It's such a big, big question.
Yeah, because it really is like, I see you.
Mm.
Like, it's that, yeah, connection.
Yeah.
Unreal.
I'm just writing down here, Elisa, something that you said there it sort of triggered me thinking about that bigger question, that what are the things, what brought you back, what stopped you? And you mentioned your daughter. And I actually remember the realization, oddly enough, was after Carla kicked my butt and told me to get into bed, that the person that was in my home didn't know how to talk about it when I was like, this just nearly just happened. And I thought to myself, oh no. I was thinking, I am the worst thing in the world for Emily because I can't leave the house and I am a mess and I can't have her living a life looking at me and thinking that that's what life looks like. And you said something last week, Elisa, you were like, your head is evil. It will tell you terrible things. Depression will tell you terrible things. And it had told me that it's not fair on my brother. It's not fair on all of my brothers. It's not fair on Emily. And it was the right thing for me to stop their pain, watching my pain.
Yeah, it's so twisty.
Yeah, it
because
is.
it's literally the opposite of the truth.
Yes. And I think that's the bit that you realize when you start talking about it. And I remember being laid in bed and I thought, oh, if Emily ever feels like this, she isn't going to have anyone that understands. And she's not going to have anyone that sees her. And she's not going to have anybody that's emotionally adept enough to have a conversation about this feeling. And in that moment, I thought, I have to be alive. I have to be alive for her. And it's that untwisting part, Elisa, exactly as you say. Or you get to a point that the pain is so much, but then you realize everybody else is in pain because you're in pain. And if your pain stops, everybody's pain stops in your head. And then the minute, and this is the bit I really want people to hear, especially if you're listening thinking my pain is everybody else's pain, I told my brother, and I would genuinely do anything for him, Ryan, and him and Leanne, his partner, she just broke, and this is months later, she just broke down. She left the room, she come back and she hugged me and she was just like, don't ever leave us. Like, don't you ever, ever think that again. And Ryan's nickname is Fly. Fly was like, that's just never an option. Like, for you not to be in my world, and he doesn't talk about feelings, is not an option, Crystal. End of. And all these people that I thought were going to be better because I wouldn't have been there were all devastated just at the thought of me not being there. And that was enough. And so I suppose that the bit about how do you come back, the realization, there's a really cool book actually called Man's Search for Meaning, really small.
Viktor Frankl, isn't
it? Yes. And it was how people, it doesn't go into the gore about the Holocaust, but it goes into people's ability to survive real dark times and what that typically is connecting to something that's bigger than you, that's outside of you. And I think we've both just said that. But that's a really cool book to read. But then you've got to figure out, right, she needs me. How do I come back from here? So the anchor point to something that's bigger than you was crucial for me, and it sounds like Damo. But people very often say counselling, and I wanted to say this really overtly. I have a wonderful, wonderful woman that I've seen on and off over years, and I couldn't speak to her. I couldn't in me do it. So counseling, I want to just say this for people that are like, they won't go and see someone and I'm trying to get them. You have to be so ready. And you have to already be strong enough to say these things out loud, and you got to get yourself there. So you can't be pushed into a room. You can't be pushed into talking about it, because it's the biggest weight ever. And sometimes, if you were going to use an analogy, by the time we've said that out loud or you've asked the question, we're laid down with the boulder on us. And we've got to be able to at least sit in a chair to talk to somebody else about the boulder. And we got to get up first. So just give us a minute. And the things that do help, the grounding thing that I mentioned, small points in the day just to get to 9 o'clock and do X. Routine is great. Going outside, if you can take it, if you're not feeling agoraphobic, is great. But the biggest thing of all of it is giving yourself a break. If you actually want to sleep and you want to eat that cake and you want to do whatever that is, give yourself a minute. Yeah, it's okay to just give yourself a break and say you feel how you feel. But talk to people that you're comfortable talking to. So whoever's asked the question, if they've connected you to help, if you've got a loved one, a wife or a husband, just talking it out and being gentle with the conversation. And I'd say that journey got me back. The grounding, number one. Emily realization, grounding, number one. And then starting to go outside, but just celebrate walking around the block. Tiny thing. Don't want to go outside. If I walk the block, it's only 4 minutes. But I did it, nailed it today. Went around the block. Cool. And then a little bit more and a little bit more. Just tiny markers are enough. It's the little wins. And then I like to use my scale to see myself de-escalate. Like, where am I? How am I doing? And celebrate it. That's me.
Yeah. Class. I suppose as well, it's worth noting that there are so many little things you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And I can't not say this, but sometimes that might be all you'll be able to do, because so many people just do not have fucking access.
Yeah.
You can just say, talk to someone professional, the fucking barriers to entry. And I'm not going to get political, lads, but Jesus Christ, people are dying from fucking inequality.
Yep.
So
it's how expensive care is.
Oh, Jesus. It's expensive, it's under-resourced, all of that stuff. So I suppose it's things like podcasts. The only ones I can point to is the Two Norries, these are Irish podcasts, and the Blind Boy podcast that do absolutely fantastic mental well-being type stuff. And it's especially helpful for men because they are dudes and they're a bit of crack and they're very normal. They're not academic. But yeah, it's things like that. And I suppose trying to build little habits, those little minuscule wins, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if you ever did this, Davo. I also allow myself to lie to myself, and bear with me. The whole thing we mentioned about the feeling and actually somebody wrote to me about this, like when you said the feeling being on you, it's the only way I've ever been able to express it. The hygiene falls, like your ability to actually look after yourself falls, because everything is a big effort. So I used to lie to myself and just say, you just have to you only have to wash your hair. Just get in the shower, and you're already in there and you're already half done, aren't you? So then you do so when I'm actually having a real struggle, I just say, you've only got to wash your hair, but you might as well stand in the shower because it's easier. And I know what I'm doing, but it's my gateway. It's because actually, if I want to get in and I only want to wash my hair, then that's okay. And I saw a big poster once that said, it's okay, sweetheart, get in the shower. Even if you just stand in water, you did it. Go to your kitchen, eat something, even if it's just a yogurt. It's okay just to do a small thing in the right direction.
Yeah.
The small things for me, and I know I messaged both of you even at the weekend there. I did something that I haven't done in fucking ages because life's just been busy and moving house and doing stuff and all the rest. But we get into the kitchen on Sunday and just made a curry. And from scratch, myself and the little one, we just stood and chopped some onions and chopped some garlic, and it was great. And at the end of it, there was just sitting down and just taking stock. There was just a little moment there when I just kind of sat down and thought, this is nice, because the three of us were just sat at the table. We've made something. We put a little bit of effort into it, and I was just like, perfect. And it doesn't have to be anything massive. It doesn't have to be going and, fucking conquering whatever, but it can just be something so simple.
Yeah.
Like that is just putting a little bit of effort in, seeing a little bit of a result, the boost that can give you in, just in times, any times at all. Like the little boosts and the little wins you get out of it is amazing.
Yeah.
Class. Okay. So before we came on, we had a little powwow.
Yeah.
About maybe taking the conversation now in a slightly different direction. So we've talked between last week and this week now about like your experiences, kind of the coping mechanisms, the way back and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Touched briefly there on, I suppose, kind of broader societal issues. But there's this thing where it comes to like the stigma around suicide. Definitely there is the focus is on people left behind, and very much it does seem like, even like we mentioned before, ad campaigns, all that kind of stuff is focused on the people left behind, the people doing the advocacy work versus the person who's struggling or has struggled isn't in the center. And it's a lot of like, how could things could never be that bad. And it's like, it's not only a lack of understanding, but it almost feels like a lack of willingness to understand, because it's almost so dark that if you haven't experienced it, you don't want to touch it. Like if I wrote there drives the stigma. So if there's a lack of willing to understand, it's like, we won't talk about it because it's too difficult for us to talk about it. And like, it just is maddening. But I had said to you, I was reading some tweets. If you put suicide into Twitter, holy fuck, it's a dark place. Like, just like in general, like, like Twitter's a fucking,
yeah.
And Instagram, kids, it's much friendlier over there. But I saw some tweets that I was like, "Oh, boys, do I want to touch this? Because this is heavy." So this first one I'm gonna read out. And Chris, like, I read it out before we came on, just kind of like, "Is this going to be too much?" And you were like, "I have fucking thoughts." So, but you didn't tell me the thoughts. Direct quote. So, oh Jesus, I'm nervous, lads. Oh, okay. So I'm going to read out this first tweet. This is by @kittens_not_kids. So I've started to think of severe suicidal depression as something like a terminal illness. We don't call cancer patients selfish for choosing doctor-assisted suicide. Why is it different for someone suffering horribly from depression? Caveat here, this is not to encourage suicide. Rather, if you have truly exhausted treatment options after years of trying, I feel like a severe mental illness is or can be terminal. Discuss.
Oh, so many thoughts. Okay, so my first reaction in there is the reason it's different. And that's not to say that the people that we have lost or have lost their life to the fight and have done it shouldn't have the utmost respect and sympathy. But my problem with that as a statement is there is a way back. And I don't know whoever said this. I think it might have been Jimmy Carr. So it was somebody that basically said living with depression is living in a body that wants to live with a mind that wants to die. So your body wants to be alive, it wants to eat, it wants to drink, it wants to sleep, it wants to survive, but your head is saying, but you don't want that, but you don't want that. And I think the difference between terminal illness is you're living in a body that wants to die or is dying, and your mind, for the most part, probably wants to survive. And I know that because I was with my aunt when she had a 6-week, you're going to die in 6 weeks message, and she refused, and she is still here 6 weeks later. I come from strong women, right? She was just like, no, thank you if you're 6 weeks.
No,
that's no, thank you for 6 weeks. And one day I'll take you down that journey. But I think the thing about starting to view depression as a terminal illness, it it is absolutely. And I was thinking this after our podcast. Well, we mentioned, Damo, that sometimes if it's a bad day, the thought will come in and it flits away.
Mm-hmm.
And people would be like, oh, does that mean that you are there again? No. What it is, it's, when people say you can't unsee it, at some point in your life, your brain created another door, right? Another resource to be able to cope with this. And you can't unsee that door once you've seen it. So your brain says, this is really tough. You have all these doors. And then we're just like, fuck off door. We're going to go with the run, the cook, the something, right? We choose the other doors, but you can't not see the door once it's been created, right? Doesn't mean that you're depressed. Doesn't mean you're struggling. It just is. And that is a really long way of saying your body wants to be here. And actually, so does everybody around you want you to be here. The thing that's poorly, sick, and needs help is your mind, and you can come back from it. It's not terminal. And you're sitting here looking at two people, if you're watching this on YouTube, that were there. I genuinely thought that was it. And it wasn't terminal. And I'm so glad that it wasn't. So my thoughts are, it's not the same, because your body wants to be here. Everybody around you wants you to be here, and you would be missed so much. This is a head problem, and you can do things to bring that back. When you're terminally ill, you don't have choice.
Damo, do you have something to contribute?
Go. Go.
Jesus, how do you follow that? Look, I think the sentiment behind tweets like that, and I suppose the conversation opens up like that. The bit where I see where it falls down a bit, like Crystal has said there, the likes of a terminal illness there, and I suppose the argument for assisted death, like it's a lot of the time it's a physical thing that I suppose practiced medical science knows that there's potentially no way back from it. A lot of the time there's not. That's, I suppose, where the moral argument for for comes into the mental illness and the mental health side of things with suicide. I don't think we know enough about it, and I think it's so, every person's so different and they think so differently, and that there's probably so many contributing factors into why they're feeling the way they are. So I think the argument for assisted suicide, I think it's too quick of a step. There's
Well, Jesus, I don't assisted suicide now wouldn't really be the term I'd use. I think it's more, do I want to say justified suicide?
Yeah.
Is almost what they're angling at.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where you're sick enough to say that's I think I wrote down exhausted all options was something that was in there.
Yeah.
I think, there is a way back.
Yeah.
And there is a lighter day. And the assisted death part is because you are dying anyway. Your body is dying.
Yeah.
And if it lets you go all the way through that journey, the pain is going to be something like you can't bear. And I think saying that, I'm very conscious of the pain that goes with feeling suicidal. It is chronic. But the condition that is causing that pain, you can come back from. Things like cancer, you can't. Yeah, with you, Damo.
I definitely think it is, and it's just it's because it is, I suppose, depression and because it is mental health crisis that somebody's in. There's so much in there that going back to the simple conversation can bring out. It's when people are in that state, it's very hard to see kind of another way out of that. It's very hard to see that, okay, maybe there are other options here. And I think when people do get to the stage where they have exhausted all options, you're kind of looking at, I suppose, the whole stigma side of things. Are we able to ask the right questions? Are we able to speak openly about it?
Yeah.
I suppose one of the things I had noticed last week, I got a few messages, saying well done, for speaking about it so openly, and that must have taken some balls to do that. And it's like I completely understand and I appreciate the support and the comments and stuff, but why does it have to take
Yeah.
oh, that takes some courage to do that. Why? Why
Yeah.
should it? Why
It's not
it's
saying that it doesn't, but it's a shame that it
yeah, I
does.
was like, yeah, like why is that the situation? Why is it not a case of, oh, fucking good on you for fucking speaking about it? This is my experience with it too, or why is it not much more relatable?
Yeah.
That it's just kind of normal that people speak about it openly.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Man,
shouldn't be a brave thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And that, I suppose that goes back to, I don't know if it's a point we made while recording, not recording, but the thing of equating mental health to physical health.
Yeah.
Of like, you shouldn't, I don't want to use the word shooting all over people, but like you wouldn't be embarrassed about a broken leg. So therefore, why should you be embarrassed about having issues with your mental health? And actually, one of the Blind Boy podcasts I was listening to earlier is where he was interviewing the two Norries, and he spoke about how, do you know when you're a kid and you break your leg and you have a cast on, and everyone gathers around and they sign the cast, and it's like this, everyone wants to be involved, and like how beautiful it will be if we had the same response of community gathering around of, oh, it's not a broken leg, I don't have a cast, but actually I'm really struggling here. It's like,
mm.
I'm going to sign your mental cast. I'm not going to draw a dick in it, because that's what a lot of people did with drawing on casts. It's like, and then you're going home to your mom like, stay on my cast.
Sorry about
But
that. Yeah. Did you I watched the Diary of a CEO podcast with Lewis Capaldi. That is very interesting. So it's basically Lewis Capaldi being really open, really candid about panic attacks, mass anxiety, having to take a seat on stage, just ended up with such severe twitches that it made his dad cry because he thought he was having a fit. Like, it is so open, so real. And I thought it was the most powerful thing, seeing Lewis Capaldi and genuinely being just like, this is just what it was. This is how bad it got. This is how I felt. This was the reaction of my family around me. And I just like, yeah. And it's like an hour and 40 minutes, but my God, it goes in, and it's wonderful. And you see him talk about where he is now and the fact that it's a journey, and yeah, magic, absolutely magic. And the more people that are getting on and having that bigger conversation, and we by listening, I am signing Lewis Capaldi's mental health cast, right? To be like, yes, Lewis, wicked that you're talking about it. So yeah, I like that.
I think one thing I've definitely noticed, and especially as you said with the likes of Lewis Capaldi, there's a lot, seems to be a few musicians over kind of the summer period and over the course of the year that have been really hectic, busy. But I've heard of a couple of them who have been like, I'm fucking taking a break from tour because I'm fucking burnt out.
Yeah.
And like they're I suppose trying to get ahead of it. They're recognizing that, oh, this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just gonna take some fucking time for myself.
Mm.
Like, and I think, I suppose with it being public, obviously with tour dates and stuff being cancelled there, you've obviously got fans who are going to be disappointed. But I suppose them coming out and speaking about that, if people can get an understanding of, okay, this person is in this situation, this is why they've done this.
Yeah.
Are we be able to get a deeper understanding for everybody else around us that maybe this is why this person's taking some time off work, or maybe this is why this person maybe isn't engaging the way they usually are.
Well, maybe it's, you said about, why is it different? And I think it's because we understand bone meant to be together, broken, that'll hurt. It mends in 6 weeks. The cast comes off, they'll limp for a bit and they go back to work. Like, we really are rehearsed in what it is, that it'll hurt, all the stuff.
Mm.
And then with mental health, it's so complex, diverse, different types, anxiety. Is it constant? Is it overwhelming? Depression, not depression, low mood. Like, it's so diverse.
And also, it's like, you've got a cast, broken cast, visible, whereas I look like I'm having the best fucking time of my life, but I'm actually depressed off my brain. Like, you can't tell by looking at someone.
Well, I think we mentioned last week that campaign of what's suicide's face. And it was a massive campaign around all the train stations of really happy, smiley people. And it was like 2 days before she committed suicide, 4 weeks before. But it's amazing that we are starting to unpick the stereotype of what you think that looks like.
Yeah.
And we're starting to understand the more we listen to Lewis Capaldi, the gymnast that pulled herself from the Olympics to be like,
I was just thinking of her, Simone Biles.
Yeah.
I am not. And a young, in the public eye, in front of the world, said, my mental health comes first. Thank you very much. Backed out. Like this.
And isn't it amazing though? There was so much fucking criticism of her. And it's like, you pricks. So it's this thing of, and it's very prevalent of somebody speaks about suicide and they're just seeking attention. It's like, actually, yes, they're seeking attention because they fucking need attention. Why is seeking attention such a bad thing? If I'm seeking it, it's because I have a need that needs to be fucking met.
Yeah.
And Jesus, I can't stand the fucking phrase seeking attention. Did I put that across?
I didn't get it, but I'm glad you articulated it after.
Next YouTube still is going to be going like this about seeking fucking attention.
It's almost like I remember the Simone Biles thing, and like I remember there was so much like she's a fucking Olympian. Like how dare she? Like, we have this expectation of her.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same even day-to-day life when we're interacting with other people and other people interact with us. There's an expectation on you to do your job a certain way. There's an expectation for you to interact with people a certain way. And when you're not doing it, people kind of look at you and go, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, we expect you to do this, but why aren't you doing it?
Oh, I mean, you just triggered so much thought in me about the rate of suicide in men to women and the expectation from society about what men will bring to the table and how, like, the pressure of that must be monumental. Like, I have a small insight because I do support my family, but it's the stereotype and the sort of standard expectation of every man that you will support everything. So expectation, oh gosh, like the weight of expectation of others on each person. I wonder how much that plays into it. And like I said, with Biles and everyone being like, how dare she? She's an Olympian. She's on the stage. I mean, for me, I'm like, yay. Yeah.
I mean, and because like if there's any stage, so to speak, that you're going to want to take a step back if your mental health's really suffering, it's going to be when kind of all eyes are on you, because if you fuck up because your mental health's not there, where does that go from there? What's the outcome of that? Like, she performed really badly. It's, what the fuck does that do to your mental health?
She was doing really complex stunts. She could have broke her fucking neck.
Yeah.
It's like, she's not playing here. Like, this is not, you need to be absolutely on form. It was a safety issue.
Yeah, it was. Actually, it all is, right? We're talking about the safety of people. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the more we understand about what it feels like, and that's the stuff, like how painful it is, how it actually feels, we build empathy in people. So when they hear it, the Simones, the Lewis Capaldis, the whatever, and then we'll be like, oh, I think I heard a thing and I understand how that might feel. Not understand, I have heard how that might feel, and we can just be a bit more bloody empathetic. Yeah.
Empathy for everyone. Dish that shit out. Sprinkle around like fairy dust.
One tweet, mate. That was deep for one tweet.
Wasn't it just? Yeah. There were more. I'm so glad I didn't read them out. So listen, we're going to wrap it up. Yep. This has been, I think, really cool. And thank you so much for contributing. This will be our second episode for Suicide Awareness Month. And yeah, I suppose any final words? Like, you've 20 fucking seconds.
So no, just thank you for listening. Do listen to the first one if you didn't, and thank you to Damo for joining us and being epic.
Keep talking.
Nice.
Talking,
epic.
People.
Not now.
Bye.
Bye.